The Michelin-starred chef was still on his knees begging when Dante Caruso pushed past him and walked straight to my food cart. My hands froze over the steaming pot of congee. Every head in the restaurant turned. The conversations, the clinking of silverware, the soft jazz piano, all of it stopped. Silence dropped like a blade. How much? His voice cut through the dead air. I couldn't speak. This man, Dante Caruso, the one they whispered about in Chinatown like saying his name too loud would summon demons, was standing at my battered food cart with its peeling paint and will held up by a cinder block. Behind him, Osteria Paradiso stood ready to serve him. A private dining room with hand-painted frescoes. A chef who'd trained under Massimo Bottura and flew in from Medina just for tonight's tasting menu. A meal that cost $850 per person, not including wine. 60 men in suits that cost more than cars watched from inside. And he wanted my $4 bowl of rice porridge. I asked how much. He pulled out his wallet, black leather, Hermes, probably worth more than my cart had cost my grandmother in 1983. For the congee. For $4, I managed. My voice came out strangled. This is how my life changed. Not with warning, not with preparation, just with a man in a $12,000 Brioni suit asking the price of street food while an Italian chef who'd won 3 Michelin stars sobbed into his hands and 60 of New York's most dangerous men watched through plate glass windows. I'm Mei Lin, 26 years old. I've been running this food cart on the corner of Mulberry and Grand for 3 years and 4 months, ever since my mother died and left me with nothing but her recipe book and $47,283 in medical debt. The debt collectors call every Tuesday and Thursday. I know their voices better than I know my own. The cart itself is 41 years old. My grandmother Amma pushed it through these same streets starting in 1983 when she arrived from Guangdong province with $200 sewn into her coat lining and a daughter who didn't speak English. The wheel's been broken for 6 months. I keep meaning to fix it, but a new will cost $75 and I need that money for rent. The paint is 3 different shades of blue from 3 different attempts to cover rust. But it's mine, paid off with my mother's life and my grandmother's dreams, and it makes enough money that I can sleep in the 8x10 storage room above Golden Dragon Grocery and eat 1 real meal a day. Dante Caruso was not supposed to be part of my world. He existed in penthouses that took up entire floors, in private clubs where you needed 3 references just to be considered for membership, in back rooms where decisions got made that changed who controlled what blocks and who paid tribute to whom. I existed on a street corner selling breakfast to construction workers at 6 a.m. and late-night drunken noodles to NYU students at 2 a.m. But here he was at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in October, and I was too shocked to do anything but ladle congee into my least cracked bowl. You're shaking. Not a question. Just an observation delivered in a voice that sounded like expensive whiskey tasted, smooth with an edge that could cut. I was. The ladle trembled in my hand hard enough that rice splashed back into the pot. I put it down before I dropped it completely, used both hands to hold the bowl steady as I added the preserved egg. The one I'd made myself because store-bought ones were never aged right, always too salty or too ammonia sharp. Then the pork floss I'd cooked down from shoulder meat for 6 hours yesterday. The scallions I'd chopped fresh 20 minutes ago. The way my mother had taught me, measuring in pinches and feelings rather than cups and spoons. That's Dante Caruso, Mrs. Wu had whispered to me 3 months ago, gripping my arm hard enough to leave finger-shaped bruises. We were closing our stalls and a black Mercedes S-Class had driven past, windows tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. The Caruso family owns half of Little Italy. The other half pays them rent to exist. You see that car, you cross the street. You see that man, you disappear. His father was worse, but Dante's smarter. More dangerous because you don't see it coming. I held out the bowl. He took it. Our fingers didn't touch, but I felt the proximity like static electricity, like the air pressure change before a thunderstorm. Spoon, I said. Then realized I'd just given an order to a Mafia boss. Please, sir. If you want one. He took the plastic spoon I offered, the cheap kind that bends if you press too hard, that I bought in boxes of 500 from the restaurant supply store. Turned. Walked back into Osteria Paradiso like he hadn't just rejected what I knew from the menu board was a 15-course tasting experience featuring white truffles from Alba and Wagyu beef from Japan. The chef, Alessandro something, I'd seen his picture in the Times food section, was still on the floor. Someone in a suit helped him up. His face was red, tears running into his carefully groomed beard. A man who'd dedicated his entire life to perfecting his craft, and his guest of honor had walked out to eat my street food. Inside the restaurant, I could see through the windows. 60 men in expensive suits at tables arranged in a careful hierarchy. The most important closest to Dante, The least important near the back but still inside, still part of the inner circle. Every single one of them watching their boss. Watching to see what this meant, this strange choice. Dante sat down at the head table. The man to his right was massive, 6 feet 4 inches at least, shoulders that strained his suit jacket, nose that had been broken more than once. He leaned in and said something. Dante shook his head. Picked up my plastic spoon. Brought it to his lips. And ate my $4 kanji while a $850 tasting menu went cold on the table beside him. I stood frozen at my cart. This wasn't how things worked. Men like him didn't eat from carts like mine. There were rules, invisible but absolute. Rich people ate expensive food in expensive places. Poor people ate cheap food on street corners. You didn't cross those lines, not in Little Italy, not in Chinatown, not anywhere in this city that knew its place. He ate slowly, methodically, like he was cataloging every flavor, every texture. First the scallions, I watched him eat them all before touching anything else. Then the preserved egg, breaking it carefully and mixing it into the rice. Then the pork floss. Then he stirred it all together and ate the rest in steady, deliberate spoonfuls. It took him 7 minutes. I know because I counted every second on the clock above the halal cart across the street. When he finished, he set the bowl down carefully. Wiped his mouth with the white cloth napkin from the restaurant. Linen, probably Italian, probably cost more than my weekly food budget. Then he stood up, walked back outside to my cart and handed me a $100 bill. Keep the change. I can't. I don't have $96 in my register. I said keep it. He looked at me properly for the first time. His eyes were dark brown, almost black in the streetlight. Sure. The kind of eyes that saw everything and forgot nothing. What's your name? Mei Lin. Mei Lin. He said it perfectly. The tone's right, the sound's clear. Not Mei Lin, or My Lin, or any of the dozen ways Americans usually mangled it. That kanji. Your recipe? My mother's. And her mother's before that. My hands were still shaking. I clasped them together to hide it. Best thing I've eaten in 5 years. He glanced back at the restaurant. Alessandro was visible through the window, sitting at a table with his head in his hands. Better than anything Alessandro could make if he cooked for 1,000 years. He's very good, I said automatically. Defending him because I'd read the reviews, seen the awards, knew what it meant to dedicate your life to your craft. He's technically perfect. Every dish is exactly what it should be. But it doesn't taste like anything. Dante's jaw tightened. It tastes like ambition. Like trying to impress people. Your kanji tastes like someone gave a damn about feeding people properly. It's just rice porridge. Nothing is ever just anything. He pulled out his phone, typed something. Tomorrow morning. Same order. I'll be here at 7. I don't open until 8. You do now. Not a request. A statement of fact delivered in a voice that didn't expect argument. And Mei Lin? Don't run. I know where you sleep. I know about the storage room above Golden Dragon Grocery with the broken lock you've been meaning to fix for 6 months. I know you owe $47,283 to St. Vincent's Hospital Billing Department. I know you've been paying $200 a month when they want $500, and they're threatening to sue. Don't make me come find you. He walked away. Got into the Mercedes that had appeared silently while we were talking, like it had materialized out of the shadows. The car pulled away, taillights disappearing down Mulberry Street. I stood there with a $100 bill in my hands that were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Mrs. Wu materialized from her vegetable stand 15 feet away. She had a gift for appearing exactly when something happened, like she had a sixth sense for drama. What did he want? Her voice was urgent, pulling me close enough that I could smell the garlic and ginger that clung to her clothes from a day of prep work. My kanji. What did you do? Sold it to him. For $4. I am Mei Lin. She grabbed my arm, fingers digging into the old bruise she'd left last time. You don't understand. That man doesn't just buy food. That man doesn't do anything simple. Whatever this is, it's not about kanji. It's never about what it looks like on the surface. Then what's it about? I don't know. But you need to leave. Tonight. Before he comes back tomorrow. Pack your things, take that $100, get on a bus to Philadelphia or Boston or anywhere that's not here. But I couldn't leave. The cart was my grandmother's legacy, my mother's life's work, my only source of income. The storage room was the only home I had, 8 feet by 10 feet with a mattress on the floor, a hot plate, a mini fridge and a chemical toilet I emptied every other day. Rent was $300 a month, which was impossible to find anywhere in Manhattan, And Mr. Chin, who owned the building, only gave it to me because my mother had worked for him for 12 years before she got sick. And besides, Dante already knew where I lived. Already knew about the broken lock I kept meaning to fix but couldn't afford to. Already knew details about my life I didn't remember telling anyone. What was the point of running if he could find me whenever he wanted? That night I lay awake on my mattress, staring at the water-stained ceiling and trying to understand what had happened. The storage room was hot, October, but the building's ancient heating system didn't have individual controls, just one ancient boiler that Mr. Chin turned on in November and off in April regardless of actual temperature. I could hear the family in the apartment above me, footsteps and muffled TV voices. Could smell someone cooking, garlic, ginger, that particular scent of home cooking that made my chest ache because it reminded me of my mother. The $100 bill sat on the upturned crate I used as a nightstand. I could use it to fix the cart's wheel finally. Or pay down $100 of the medical debt, which would buy me another month before they escalated to lawyers. Or buy actual groceries instead of eating mistakes from the cart and day-old vegetables from Mrs. Wu. Or I could use it to run. Greyhound bus to Boston was $35. That left $65 for a few nights in a hostel while I found work. I could start over. New city, new cart eventually, new life where mob bosses didn't know my mother's recipes. My phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. Open at 6:30 tomorrow. Not 7. I moved my schedule. I stared at the screen. He had my number. Of course he had my number. Men like Dante Caruso probably had everyone's number, their addresses, their social security numbers, their entire lives in some database somewhere. I should ignore it. Should not respond. Should establish boundaries. My fingers typed anyway, okay. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, good girl. I threw the phone across the room. It bounced off the wall and landed on a pile of rice bags I used as backup storage. Good girl. Like I was a dog who'd learned a trick. Like I had any choice in whether to obey. But I did have a choice. I could refuse to open early. I could tell him no. I could. Who was I kidding? You didn't tell Dante Caruso no. Not if you wanted to wake up the next morning. Not if you wanted your cart to still be in one piece. Not if you wanted to keep living in this storage room that was barely habitable but was mine. I got up at 4:30 a.m., half an hour earlier than usual. Started the congee at 5 a.m. instead of 6. It needed time to cook right, to get that perfect consistency where the rice had broken down just enough that it was creamy but not gluey, smooth but with enough body to coat your spoon. My mother used to say congee was about patience. You couldn't rush it. You had to let the rice give itself to the water slowly, completely, transforming from individual grains into something unified. By 6:15 I was ready. The cart was as clean as I could make it. I'd scrubbed the grease off the left panel that had been building up for weeks, used steel wool on the rust spots, even wiped down the menu board. Found my least cracked bowl and washed it 3 times. At 6:28, the Mercedes pulled up. Dante got out alone this time. No massive bodyguard, no entourage. Just him in a different suit, charcoal gray today, probably Armani based on the cut. White shirt. No tie. The top button undone like he'd already been awake for hours. You're early, I said. I'm exactly on time. You're ready early. That's different. He looked at the cart, those sharp eyes cataloging every detail. You cleaned it. I clean it every morning. No you don't. Yesterday there was grease on the left panel. 3-day accumulation based on the color and thickness. Rust showing through the blue paint on the lower right corner. Today both are gone. You use steel wool, I can see the scratch patterns. He looked at me. You cleaned it for me. My face went hot. Being seen that completely felt like being naked. I clean it when I have time. You made time. Because you were thinking about me. Not a question. Just a statement delivered with absolute certainty. I didn't respond. Started making his congee with hands that wanted to shake but I forced steady. Muscle memory took over. Ladle rice. Add toppings. Extra scallions because I'd noticed yesterday he'd eaten them first. If I was being observed this closely, I could observe back. He noticed immediately. You pay attention. You liked them yesterday. How do you know what I liked? You ate the scallions first. Then the egg. Broke it up carefully, mixed it in. Then the pork floss. Then you stirred everything together and ate the rest methodically. People who eat in that order want to taste each component before experiencing them together. The scallions went first because they're your favorite. I handed him the bowl. Basic observation. He smiled. Actually smiled, and it transformed his entire face from intimidating to something almost human. Made him look younger than whatever age he was. Mid-30s maybe, though it was hard to tell with men who wore that much expensive tailoring. Smart girl. I handed him the bowl. He handed me a $50 bill this time. I don't have $46 and change. Stop saying that. I'm not paying for kanji. I'm paying for your skill. For your attention. For the fact that you noticed what I liked and adjusted accordingly. $4 is an insult to what you're actually providing. He looked around, found the plastic crate I kept for the occasional customer who wanted to eat standing at my cart. Sat down on it like sitting on cheap plastic was perfectly normal. Tell me about your mother's recipe. Why do you want to know? Because I asked. Said simply like that was reason enough. So I told him. About Ama coming from Guangdong in 1983 with nothing but this cart and her recipes written on scraps of paper in characters so old-fashioned they looked like calligraphy. About my mother learning to cook before she could read English properly, measuring by feel and taste rather than measurements. About the exact ratio of rice to water that made the difference between congee and rice soup. 1:8, not the 1:7 most people used, and you had to account for evaporation, which meant starting with slightly more water than you'd think. About the preserved eggs that had to be aged exactly 45 days in a mixture of clay, ash, salt, quicklime and rice hulls. Too little time and they were just eggs. Too much and the ammonia overpowered everything. He listened like I was explaining quantum physics instead of how to make rice porridge. Ate slowly while I talked. Never interrupted. Just nodded occasionally to show he was following. Your mother died 3 years ago, he said when I finished. Not a question. How did you? I make it my business to know things. Medical debt. St. Vincent's Hospital. Stage 4 lung cancer. She lasted 8 months after diagnosis. You were with her every day for the last 2 months. Lost your job at the translation company because you missed too much work caring for her. They said it was downsizing, but really it was attendance. Sold everything you owned to pay for treatments that the doctors told you wouldn't work, but you tried anyway because what else do you do when it's your mother? Kept the cart because it was the only thing left and you needed to eat. My throat closed up. Hearing my life laid out like that, so clinical, so complete, so utterly exposed, made me feel like I was standing naked in the middle of Mulberry Street. He knew everything. Every desperate choice, every failure, every moment I'd thought was private. Why? I managed. My voice came out rough. Why do you know all this about me? Because yesterday for 7 minutes while I ate your congee, I didn't think about business. Didn't think about territory disputes or protection payments or the 15 different things that could go wrong any given day. Didn't think about Alessandro's wounded pride or my mother's disappointment that I embarrassed her in front of her friends. I just tasted your mother's recipe and felt. He paused, looking for the word. Peaceful. Real. Like I was eating food someone made because they gave a damn about feeding people right, not because they were trying to impress anyone or prove anything. I want to know what kind of person can make me feel that. If you think Mei Lin deserved to know what she was getting into, hit the like button so her story reaches someone who needs to hear it. He finished his congee. Set the bowl down gently on the pavement beside the crate. Wiped his mouth with a handkerchief he pulled from his pocket. Cloth, monogrammed, probably Italian linen. Then he stood. Tomorrow. 6:30, and Mei Lin? Fix your lock today. It makes me uncomfortable knowing anyone could walk into your room while you're sleeping. I can't afford. There'll be a locksmith at your door at 2 p.m. He's already paid. Just let him in and let him work. Dante pulled out his wallet again, handed me 3 more 50s. For your time this morning. And for telling me about your family. Stories are worth more than food. He left. The Mercedes pulled away. I stood there with $200 in my hands, more money than I usually made in 3 days, and more questions than answers. Mrs. Wu appeared within 30 seconds. Her timing was supernatural. He's coming back, she said. Statement, not question. Tomorrow. 6:30. Aya. She shook her head hard enough that her gray bun wobbled. You need to understand something, girl. Men like Dante Caruso don't do random. Everything is strategy. Everything is business. If he's interested in you, it's because you're useful somehow. I make kanji. How is that useful to a mob boss? I don't know. But you'll find out. She gripped my arm. And when you do, you need to decide if you can live with what he wants from you. Because men like that don't just want. They take. And once they take, you don't get back what was yours. That afternoon at exactly 2 p.m., a locksmith showed up. Middle-aged Italian guy with a thick Brooklyn accent and professional tools. He looked at my broken lock, the kind that had been picked so many times the tumblers barely engaged, and shook his head. This wouldn't keep out a determined 10-year-old. Mr. Caruso said to install the good stuff. He pulled out a Schlage deadbolt that probably cost $200. This'll keep out everyone except professionals with time and tools. I didn't ask for this. Mr. Caruso did. And what Mr. Caruso wants, Mr. Caruso gets. You got a problem with that, take it up with him. He started drilling. Though if I were you, I'd just say thank you and sleep better at night knowing you're secure. It took him 45 minutes to install the new lock and give me 3 copies of the key. He refused a tip. Already paid, including gratuity. You have a good night, miss? After he left, I stood in my storage room and looked at the new lock. Solid. Professional. The kind of security I'd never been able to afford. Dante had just given it to me without asking, without expecting thanks, just because it made him uncomfortable, knowing I was unsafe. That night I lay awake again thinking about what that meant. Was Mrs. Wu right? Was this just the first move in some larger game? Was I being played somehow, set up for something I couldn't see yet? Or was it possible that a man who'd spent his whole life in organized crime, who'd probably killed people or ordered them killed, who commanded 60 dangerous men with a look? Was it possible that man could also just genuinely want someone to be safe? I didn't have answers. But the next morning at 6:30, the Mercedes showed up. Dante got out. Same routine, congee, extra scallions sitting on the crate. But this time he brought someone else. A woman. Late 50s, elegant in a way that spoke of old money and careful maintenance. Hair professionally colored to hide gray. Clothes that looked simple but probably cost thousands. She stayed in the car, but I could see her watching through the tinted window. My mother, Dante said, following my gaze. She wanted to see what all the fuss was about. I can make her a bowl too. She doesn't eat breakfast. Doctor's orders, intermittent fasting or some nonsense. But she wanted to see the woman who makes her son wake up at 6:30 a.m. He took a bite of congee. She thinks I'm insane. Are you? Probably. She says I'm disrespecting Alessandro. Insulting our business partners by choosing street food over Michelin stars. Making myself look weak by eating from a cart. He ate another spoonful. She's probably right about all of it. Then why do you keep coming? Because this is the only thing that tastes real anymore. He gestured vaguely at the world around us. Everything else is performance. Theater. I sit in that restaurant and eat Alessandro's technically perfect food and everyone watches to see how I react. Do I like it enough? Is my approval clear? What does my choice of wine say about my mood? It's all signaling. All politics. Another bite. This is just good. You made it because it's what you know how to make well. I eat it because it tastes like someone gave a damn. That's real. He finished. But this time he didn't leave immediately. He pulled out his phone, made a call. Marco. The storage room above Golden Dragon Grocery on Grand Street. I want it renovated. Full kitchen, proper bed, actual bathroom with a shower. Heat that works. Windows that seal. I want it livable, not just technically habitable. Budget whatever it costs. I want it done in 1 week. He hung up. Looked at me. You can't live in a room with no heat and a chemical toilet forever. I can't afford to pay you back. You're not paying. I am. Consider it an investment in my breakfast quality. Can't have you getting sick from your living conditions. Then where would I eat? He pulled out his wallet, handed me $100 this time. And Mei Lin? Starting tomorrow you're charging me $20 for that bowl. $4 is offensive to your mother's memory. He walked to the car. His mother gave me a long, assessing look through the window, calculating something, measuring me against some standard I didn't understand. Then the Mercedes pulled away. Mrs. Wu materialized. Of course. He's renovating your room. Apparently. You know what this means. Not a question. That I'll have heat this winter? It means you owe him. And men like Dante Caruso always collect their debts. Maybe not today. Maybe not this year. But one day he'll ask for something and you won't be able to say no because you'll owe him. She shook her head. This is how it starts. Small favors. Kindness. Making you comfortable. Then one day he asks you to do something, hide something, say something, lie to someone, and you do it because you owe him. That's how they own you. But I needed heat. Needed a shower that wasn't a gym membership I couldn't afford. Needed to live somewhere that wasn't one bad winter away from killing me. The construction crew showed up the next day. 5 guys with professional tools who tore out everything. The chemical toilet, the moldy drywall, the floor that had rotted through in the corner by the window. They built it back better than it had ever been. A real kitchen with a proper stove and a full-size refrigerator. A bathroom with a shower that had hot water and water pressure. A bed, an actual bed with a frame and a mattress that wasn't on the floor. They insulated the walls. Fixed the windows so they actually sealed. Installed a heating unit that I could control myself. Painted everything white and clean. It took 6 days. On the 7th day, Marco, older Italian guy, clearly someone important in Dante's organization, did a final walkthrough with me. "Everything work okay?" he asked. It's the nicest place I've ever lived." "Good. Mr. Caruso wants you comfortable." He handed me a key. "New lock on this door too. Only 3 copies of this key exist. Yours, mine, and Mr. Caruso's. Nobody else gets in without you saying so." "Why does he have a key to my room?" Marco looked at me like I'd asked why water was wet. "Because he paid for it. Because he's responsible for your safety now. Because that's how this works." He softened slightly. "He won't use it unless there's an emergency. Mr. Caruso's not that kind of man. But he needs to be able to get to you if something happens." After he left, I stood in my newly renovated room and tried to calculate what it had cost. The labor alone was probably $10,000. Materials another $5,000 maybe. This wasn't a small favor. This was a huge investment in someone he'd known for less than 2 weeks. What did he want from me that was worth this much? Dante came every morning at 6:30. Always the same order, congee with extra scallions. Always sat on the plastic crate even though I'd offered to get him a real chair. Always talked while he ate. He told me about his father, Salvatore Caruso, who died when Dante was 16. Heart attack during a business dinner. That was probably a setup, though they'd never proven it. About taking over the family business at an age when most kids were worried about SAT scores. About the weight of being responsible for 300 families who depended on Caruso money for their rent, their groceries, their kids' college funds. "People think this life is glamorous," he said one morning 10 days after we'd met. "They watch movies and think it's power and respect and women and money. But mostly it's just responsibility. 300 families. If I make a bad call, if I lose territory or get into a war we can't win, those families suffer. Kids don't eat. Grandmothers get evicted. That weight never stops. Why do it then? Why not just leave? Leave to where? This is what I know. What I was raised for. My father started teaching me the business when I was 8 years old. By the time I was 12, I could calculate protection payments in my head. By 14, I was sitting in on meetings. By 16, I was running things." He finished his congee. "This isn't a job you quit. It's who you are." I told him about my mother. About learning to cook when I was 6 years old, standing on a stool to reach the stove while my mother guided my hands. About recipes that existed only in muscle memory because writing them down felt like giving away family secrets. About the moment I'd realized the chemotherapy wasn't working and we were just buying weeks with money we didn't have, but I couldn't tell her to stop because what if those extra weeks mattered? "She knew," Dante said quietly. "The last month. She knew it wasn't working. But she kept going because it made you feel like you were doing something. Because watching your child feel helpless is worse than dying." "How do you know that?" "Because my mother did the same thing with my father. Last 6 months she knew he was dying. But she pretended the doctors were hopeful. Pretended there was a chance. Because my father needed her to believe and she loved him enough to lie. We talked like that every morning. Like friends. Like equals. Like 2 people who'd found something rare and were examining it carefully, afraid to push too hard in case it broke. 3 weeks in, everything changed. I was prepping for the morning rush. Dante was due in 15 minutes, when 3 men appeared at my cart. Not Caruso men. I'd learned to recognize Caruso men by now. They wore expensive suits but moved like soldiers. These men wore leather jackets and gold chains. Moved like predators. "You're Mei Lin," the one in front said. Russian accent thick enough to cut. "The one who makes breakfast for Dante Caruso." "I'm closed right now." "Not asking if you're open, Malaya. Asking if you're the one Caruso eats from." He smiled, showing gold teeth. "My employer has a business proposition." My stomach dropped. "I don't want any business." "Didn't ask what you want." He pulled out a small glass vial from his pocket. Inside was white powder. "You put this in Caruso's food. All of it. He eats it. 20 minutes later he has massive heart attack. Very sad. Very natural looking. You do this, you get $50,000 cash. You don't do this." He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo. My storage room. Recent photo. I could see the new furniture. "You don't do this, you have unfortunate accident. Building catches fire. Happens all the time in Chinatown. Faulty wiring." He set the vial on my cart. It sat there like a bomb. "The Volkov family doesn't appreciate Caruso expanding into Brighton Beach. This is how we solve territorial disputes. Quietly. efficiently. No war, no attention, just tragic food poisoning. Bad shellfish maybe. You're just the delivery system. He checked his watch. Expensive Russian brand I didn't recognize. You have 12 minutes to decide. Put it in his food and live rich. Refuse and burn. Prosto yes? Simple. They walked away. Disappeared into the morning shadows of Mulberry Street. The vial sat on my cart, catching the early light. I had 12 minutes to decide if I was a murderer. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold my phone. I could call the police but and say what? Russian mobsters want me to poison Italian mob boss? They'd laugh. Or worse, they'd investigate and then I'd be dead for talking before the day was out. I could run. Right now. Leave the cart, leave the room, leave everything. Catch a bus to Philadelphia with the money I'd saved. Start over. But they'd photographed my room. Which meant they'd been inside. Which meant they knew where I worked, where I slept, probably where I bought groceries. There was nowhere to run that they couldn't find me. I could refuse. Tell them no when they came back to check. But then my building would burn and I'd burn with it. Along with Mr. Chin and his family upstairs and everyone else in the building. Or I could do it. Put the poison in Dante's congee. Watch him eat it. Watch him die 20 minutes later. Collect my $50,000 and disappear to somewhere neither the Volkovs nor the Carusas would ever find me. My mother's voice in my head. Mei Lin, you are not a killer. Your grandmother survived the Cultural Revolution by keeping her head down and her hands clean. Your mother survived poverty by working hard and hurting no one. You are their daughter. You don't kill. But I was also my own person. And my own person wanted to live. I looked at the vial. Ricin, probably, based on what I'd read in news articles about Russian poisoning methods. Flavorless, odorless. He'd never taste it. Would probably think it was a heart attack like they said. Die thinking it was just bad luck, his number finally coming up. Except he wasn't just a mob boss anymore. He was the man who'd listened to stories about my mother like they mattered. Who'd fixed my lock because it made him uncomfortable that I wasn't safe. Who'd renovated my room so I wouldn't freeze this winter. Who'd spent 3 weeks eating my congee and talking to me like I was worth talking to. Who'd made me feel like I mattered for the first time since my mother died. The Mercedes pulled up. 6:28, 2 minutes early. Dante got out alone. Smiled when he saw me, that genuine smile that transformed his face. Morning, Mei Lin. You look pale. You feeling okay? The vial burned in my pocket where I'd shoved it when I saw the car approaching. I'm fine. Didn't sleep well. The new bed not comfortable? I can have them change the mattress. The bed's perfect. Just had things on my mind. He studied me with those two sharp eyes. What things? I could lie. Should lie. Pretend everything was fine, put the poison in his food, walk away rich and alive. But something in me cracked. Maybe it was exhaustion from 3 weeks of tension. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was that he'd spent all this time being honest with me about his life and I wanted to return that honesty. Someone wants you dead, I said. The words came out flat. Factual. They gave me poison. Told me to put it in your food or they'd kill me. The air around us went arctic. Dante's entire body language changed in a heartbeat, from relaxed to predator still in the space between words. His hand moved slightly toward his jacket where I'd never noticed but suddenly knew he kept a gun. Show me. I pulled out the vial with shaking hands. He took it carefully. Held it up to the streetlight. His jaw clenched so tight I could see muscle jumping. Ricin. Russian specialty. Painful death. Takes 3 to 7 days. Whoever made this wanted me to suffer. He pocketed it. Volkov family? They didn't give names. But the accent was Russian. They said you were expanding into Brighton Beach and they didn't like it. How much did they offer you? $50,000. And you're telling me this because? Because I can't do it. My voice broke. I can't watch you die. Not for $50,000. Not for any amount of money. They threatened you. Said they'd burn down my building if I didn't do it. Showed me photos of my room, they'd been inside. Know where I sleep. Dante pulled out his phone. Made a call. His voice when he spoke was colder than I'd ever heard it. Vincent. I need full security detail at Mei Lin's cart. Now. Armed. And send word to Volkov, he just declared war. He hung up. Looked at me. You just saved my life. I just signed my own death warrant. They'll come back. They'll check. When you're not dead, they'll know I told you. They'll try. They won't succeed. He walked around the cart, took my shaking hands in his steady ones. Held them firmly enough that I could feel calluses on his palms. This man worked with his hands somehow, wasn't just a suit giving orders. I protect what's mine, Mei Lin. And you just became mine. I'm not. Yes, you are. You chose my life over $50,000 and your own safety. That kind of loyalty is worth more than everything in my accounts. So here's what's going to happen. His voice was gentle but absolute. You're going to make my breakfast. I'm going to eat it. Then you're closing this cart and coming with me. Where? Somewhere safe. Somewhere the Volkovs can't reach you. Somewhere I can figure out how to end this without getting you killed. He squeezed my hands. You trust me? I don't know. Should I? Probably not. But you're going to anyway because staying here means dying and you're smart enough to know it. He was right. I nodded. Good. Now make my breakfast. I'm starving and I don't let threats from Russian assholes ruin my morning routine. My hands moved on autopilot. Congee, toppings, extra scallions. But I couldn't make them steady. The bowl rattled against the ladle. Dante took it gently from my hands. Set it down. Pulled me close. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, expensive and subtle. Close enough to feel his heartbeat, steady when mine was racing. Breathe, he said quietly. You're safe. I've got you. And standing there on Mulberry Street at 6:30 in the morning, being held by a mob boss while Russian hitmen wanted us both dead, I believed him. He released me. Picked up his bowl. Ate his congee slowly, deliberately, like 3 men hadn't just tried to have him murdered 10 minutes ago. When he finished, he pulled out his wallet and handed me $500. For the congee. And for choosing my life over yours. He smiled slightly. Though technically you chose both our lives. The Volkovs would have killed you either way once I was dead. You just didn't realize it yet. A black SUV pulled up. Vincent, the huge man I'd seen at the restaurant that first night, got out with 4 other men. All of them moved like soldiers. All of them had the telltale bulk under their jackets that meant guns. Take Mei Lin to the safe house, Dante ordered. Full protection detail. Nothing happens to her. Anyone gets within 50 feet who doesn't belong there, you put them down. Clear? Yes, boss. Dante turned to me. Pack what you need from your room. You won't be coming back here for a while. What about my cart? We'll store it. When this is over, when it's safe, you can come back. But right now, Mulberry Street is about to become a war zone, and you're the spark that lit it. He touched my face gently, calloused fingers surprisingly soft. Thank you for telling me. Most people would have taken the money. Most people haven't spent 3 weeks talking to you every morning. Is that what we've been doing? Just talking? What else would we call it? I can think of several things. But we'll figure that out later. After I've handled the Volkovs. After you're safe. After I've made sure no one ever threatens you again. Vincent and his men escorted me upstairs to my newly renovated room. I packed quickly, clothes, my mother's recipe book, the photos I kept by my bed. Everything else could wait or be replaced. The safe house was in Staten Island. A brownstone on a tree-lined street that looked like something out of a TV show about normal families. Nothing like what I'd expected. You'll stay here until Mr. Caruso says it's secure, Vincent explained. His voice was Brooklyn rough but not unkind. We've got men on every corner. Cameras on every approach. No one gets in without clearance. How long? Depends how fast the boss can handle Volkov. Could be days. Could be weeks. Could be, he stopped himself. Could be war, I finished. People are going to die. A lot of people. Because I couldn't poison someone. People were going to die anyway. Volkov's been pushing on our territory for 18 months. Testing boundaries, seeing what he could take. This just moved up the timeline. Vincent's expression was grim. You did the right thing. Telling the boss, saved his life. That matters. That night I lay in another unfamiliar bed, softer than my new one, which had been softer than my old one, and stared at the ceiling. Wondered what I'd set in motion. Wondered how many people would die because I'd told the truth instead of committing murder. My phone buzzed. Dante. You settled in? Yes. Your men are very thorough. Good. I need you safe. Can't focus if I'm worried about you. How bad is it going to be? The war. Silence for several seconds. Then, bad. Volkov tried to kill me through you. That's unforgivable. Not because he tried to kill me, that's business. But because he involved you. Made you complicit. Put you in danger. That crosses lines we don't cross. I'm sorry. Don't be. This was coming. He forced my hand by going after you, but the conflict was inevitable. Boss, how are you holding up? I don't know. This morning I was worried about whether I'd bought enough scallions. Now I'm in witness protection and people want me dead. People want me dead. You're just adjacent. There's a difference. Is there? Because it feels the same from here. I won't let anything happen to you, Mei Lin. I promise you that. Why? Why does it matter so much? I make kanji. You're a. I trailed off. Say it. I'm a criminal. A mob boss. Someone who's killed people and will kill more. Someone your mother would have told you to run from. His voice was hard. I know what I am. That's not what I was going to say. What then? I was going to ask why someone like you cares about someone like me. We're from different worlds. You could have breakfast anywhere. Could pay anyone to make you food. Why does it matter if I live or die? Long silence. So long I thought he'd hung up. Then, because for 3 weeks, every morning, you've treated me like a person instead of a title. You don't flinch when I sit down. Don't calculate what I want to hear before you speak. Don't perform for me. You just, like I'm Dante instead of Dante Caruso. Do you know how rare that is? No. Everyone in my life wants something. Approval, money, protection, advancement. Everyone's playing an angle. But you? He laughed, but it sounded tired. You just make kanji and tell stories about your mother and notice that I like scallions. That's real. And real is the rarest thing in my world. What happens when this is over? What do you want to happen? I don't know. This is all moving so fast. 3 weeks ago you were a customer. Now I'm in hiding because I saved your life. Take your time figuring it out. But know this, when this is over, when you're safe, you'll have choices. Come back to your cart if you want. Leave the city if you prefer. Start over somewhere else. I'll help however I can. No strings. No debts. Pause. But I hope you choose to stay. Why? Because I'm not ready to give up my mornings with you. Selfish maybe. But there it is. He hung up before I could respond. The war lasted 8 days. Vincent gave me updates every evening. Day 1. 2 Volkov warehouses in Brighton Beach burned. Insurance would call it electrical fires. Day 2. 3 Caruso-protected restaurants bombed. Small explosives, property damage, message sent. Day 3. Volkov's second-in-command found in the Gowanus Canal. Day 4. Caruso underboss shot in his driveway but survived. Kevlar vest under his shirt. Day 5. Stalemate, both sides regrouping. Day 6. More fires, more shootings, police increasing patrols but not really interfering because this was mob business. Day 7. Rumors of negotiation. Day 8. Silence. On day 9, Dante came to the safe house. He looked exhausted. Suit wrinkled. Tie gone. Hair messed up like he'd been running his hands through it for days. Dark circles under his eyes. But whole. Alive. Uninjured. It's over, he said. I was sitting in the kitchen with coffee I couldn't drink. My hands had been shaking for 8 days. Who won? Nobody wins wars. We just stop losing. He sat down across from me. Volkov is dead. Heart attack officially. Unofficially, he made the mistake of eating lunch his food taster was bribed to approve. Poetic, really. You poisoned him. I ordered it done. There's a difference. His voice was flat. He tried to kill me through you. There's only one response to that. Did you do it yourself? Does it matter? Yes. No. I didn't personally administer the poison. But I'm responsible. I gave the order. If that changes how you see me, I understand. I studied his face. Tried to find the monster everyone said he was. Saw only exhaustion and something that looked like regret. Can I go home now? Yes. Vincent's men swept your building. Checked the cart. Everything's clear. Volkov's organization is fragmenting. His nephew Victor is taking over, but he's focused on consolidating power, not revenge. You're safe. He pulled a key from his pocket. Your room is exactly how you left it. What about you? What about me? Are you coming back tomorrow? For breakfast? He smiled. Tired but genuine. Try to stop me. 6:30, same order. Though after 8 days of my mother's cooking and restaurant food, I'm going to need a double portion. Double order is $8. Charge me $100. War's expensive. I can afford it. Vincent drove me home. The neighborhood looked the same. My cart was where I'd left it, covered with a tarp to protect it from the week of rain we'd had. The storage room was untouched except for being cleaner. Someone had dusted, vacuumed, made my bed. I stood in the middle of my room and tried to process the last 9 days. I'd saved a mob boss's life. Started a war. Watched people die from a distance. And somehow ended up right back where I'd started. Except nothing was the same. I wasn't the same. That night I barely slept. At 5 a.m. I went downstairs and started prep work. Made kanji the way my mother had taught me, the way her mother had taught her. Let the rice give itself to the water slowly, patiently, becoming something greater than individual grains. At 6:30 exactly, the Mercedes pulled up. Dante got out. He looked better, showered, fresh suit, less exhausted. But there was something new in his eyes when he looked at me. Something hungry that had nothing to do with breakfast. "Morning, Mei Lin." "Morning." I made his congee without speaking. Double portion like he'd requested. Extra scallions. Watched him sit on his plastic crate and eat like the last 9 days hadn't happened. Halfway through he set down his spoon. "I've been thinking." About what you asked. What happens now? Between us. He looked at me directly. I run an organization that controls 15 square blocks of Manhattan. I make decisions that affect thousands of people. I've killed men who threatened my family. I've hurt people who broke deals. I'm not a good man, Mei Lin. I'm a necessary evil in a world that runs on violence and money. I know what you are. Do you? Because it's one thing to make me breakfast. It's another thing to be part of my world. If we do this, if we become what I think we both want to become, your life changes forever. You'll never be anonymous again. You'll always be watched. Always be protected, yes, but also always be a target. Is that what you want? I thought about it. Really thought. About my grandmother pushing this cart for 40 years, head down, invisible. About my mother working 3 jobs to stay invisible. About me spending 3 years invisible on this corner. "No," I said. "That's not what I want." His face fell. Just for a second before he controlled it, but I saw it. "I want to keep my cart," I continued. "I want to keep making congee. I want to wake up at 5 a.m. and prep rice and serve breakfast to construction workers. That's my mother's legacy. That's who I am." I paused. "But I also want you to keep showing up at 6:30. Want to keep hearing your stories. Want to keep being the person who makes you feel like life is real instead of performance. Can you be both? My world and yours don't usually mix. Your mother comes here sometimes. You sit on a plastic crate. You already mix them. I started cleaning my work surface. Maybe we don't have to choose. Maybe I stay me and you stay you and we figure out how those things fit together." He stood. Walked around the cart to where I was standing. Took the cleaning rag from my hands. Set it down. Cupped my face in his hands. "You're either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Can't it be both? I can live with that." He kissed me. Soft at first, tentative like he thought I might pull away. When I didn't, he kissed me deeper. Like he was starving for something that had nothing to do with food. When we broke apart, Mrs. Wu was watching from her vegetable stand. Her mouth was actually hanging open. Dante laughed. Real laughter, the kind that transformed his whole face. "Think she'll gossip? She'll have told everyone in Chinatown by noon." "Good. Let them know you're mine and I'm yours. Let them know anyone who touches you answers to me." He kissed me again, quick and possessive. "I have to go. Meeting at 8. But I'll be back tomorrow. 6:30. Same order? Forever. Until you get sick of me showing up every morning. That might take a while." He got in the Mercedes. Before the door closed, he called out, "Charge me $200 tomorrow. I want to pay for the privilege of kissing the chef." The car pulled away. Mrs. Wu appeared at my cart within seconds. "Mei Lin, did he just, have you lost your mind?" "Probably. That man is dangerous." "I know. He'll ruin your life." "Maybe. Or maybe he'll make it worth living." I started setting up for the morning rush. Either way, it's too late now. And it was. For better or worse, I'd made my choice. I'd chosen the mob boss who ate my congee. Who'd renovated my room. Who'd protected me from his enemies. Who'd kissed me like I was precious instead of disposable. 6 months later, I still ran my cart. Still made congee at 5 a.m. Still served construction workers and college kids. But at 6:30 every single morning without exception, a black Mercedes pulled up and Dante Caruso sat on his plastic crate and ate breakfast. Sometimes his mother joined him. Sometimes Vincent. Sometimes other men from his organization who'd learned that 6:30 to 7 was sacred time and you didn't interrupt unless the world was ending. The neighborhood got used to it. Mrs. Wu stopped warning me and started treating Dante like a nephew who needed more vegetables. The construction workers learned to nod respectfully when the boss was eating. The college kids learned that 6:30 a.m. was reserved seating. We never talked about marriage or moving in together or traditional relationship milestones. How could we? He lived in a Tribeca penthouse. I lived in a storage room. He ran a criminal empire. I ran a food cart. Our lives didn't make sense together on paper. But every morning we had 30 minutes of something real. 30 minutes where he wasn't Dante Caruso the mob boss and I wasn't Mei Lin the cart vendor. We were just two people eating breakfast and talking, finding pockets of peace in lives that didn't allow much of it. And maybe that was enough. Maybe love didn't have to look like everyone else's. Maybe it could be a mob boss and a cart vendor, meeting at dawn on a Chinatown corner, building something real from kanji and conversation and the choice to keep showing up. 3 years after that first night, Dante showed up at 6:30 with a small box. He ate his kanji first, never interrupted the ritual, then set the box on my cart. Open it. Inside was a key. Not to a car or an apartment. To the building. Golden Dragon Grocery and the apartments above it. I bought it from Mr. Chin. He was ready to retire anyway. The building's yours now. Do what you want with it. Keep running your cart. Rent out the apartments. Sell it and use the money for something else. Your choice. You bought me a building. I bought you freedom. To stay here if you want. To leave if you prefer. To never worry about rent or being evicted or having nowhere to go. You took my hands. You saved my life 3 years ago. This doesn't repay that debt, but it's a start. I looked at the key. At this man who'd spent 3 years eating my kanji every morning. Who'd protected me and respected me and never once asked me to be anything other than exactly who I was. You know what this means? I said. What? Now I really can never get rid of you. You'll keep showing up every morning because you own the building. He smiled. That genuine smile that made everything worth it. That was the plan. I'm a strategist, remember? Everything is long-term thinking. Devious. You have no idea. He kissed me right there on Mulberry Street at 6:35 a.m. while the morning rush started building. Now make me another bowl. Your building owner needs breakfast. And I did. Because that's what love looked like for us. Not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but kanji at dawn and conversations that mattered and the choice to keep showing up, morning after morning, building something real from the simplest ingredients. My grandmother would have understood. She'd built a life from rice and water and patience. I was doing the same. Just adding one more ingredient to the recipe. A mob boss who'd learned that the best things in life cost $4 and taste like someone gives a damn.